Hi, I'm Annie Fitzsimmons. I'm your Washington Realtors Legal Hotline lawyer, and I would like to answer a question today that we've seen percolating out there. And the question is this: should a listing broker ask for a copy of the buyer brokerage services agreement? Or can the listing broker ask for a copy of the buyer brokerage services agreement? Or assume that the listing broker has asked for a copy of the buyer brokerage services agreement should the buyer broker deliver that requested form? And the answer is, I don't know. And really, I don't care. This is not a big issue. I've seen conversations from brokers in social media platforms where buyer brokers kind of get in a snit over this issue. I'm so incensed that the listing broker has asked for a copy of my buyer brokerage services agreement. Who cares if listing broker has asked for a copy of your buyer brokerage services agreement? Maybe the seller really wants verification that your buyer is obligated to pay the amount that you are asking the seller to pay through that transaction. Maybe it's the seller who wants to know. Maybe it's the listing broker who wants to know. In any event, what's so secret about your buyer brokerage services agreement? At the same time, I would say to listing brokers, why do you need it? Why does it matter? Unless your seller really believes that they want to see that buyer brokerage services agreement, there is absolutely no reason for you to have a basic protocol in all of your listings to ask for a copy of the buyer's brokerage services agreement. Because in the vast majority of transactions, you don't need it. Seller and buyer are going to negotiate whatever compensation it is that seller is going to pay buyer in the transaction. Buyer brokers are obligated by Washington law to have entered that buyer brokerage services agreement. And Realtor members are restricted based on the Code of Ethics from taking any more compensation than what the buyer is obligated to pay them in that buyer brokerage services agreement. Listing brokers are not the police force for any of those issues. You are not charged with regulating buyer brokerage conduct with respect to completion of buyer brokerage services agreements. So again, don't let this be one of those issues that puts the two parties at odds with one another. And in fact, let me say that differently. Brokers, there are already so many tensions in every single transaction, complicated today by our kind of new and different negotiations that have to happen all around compensation at the time of mutual acceptance. All of those issues create tension in a purchase and sale agreement. And your clients absolutely look to you to give them good advice and protect their best interests, but they also look to you as their bedrock, their solid foundation, their calm against the tension. Please provide that to them whenever you can. Don't create controversy that's not necessary. And what I'm telling you is that controversy over whether or not buyer broker should deliver a copy of the buyer brokerage services agreement to listing broker is an unnecessary controversy. Listing brokers don't ask for it unless you really need it. Buyer brokers, if you're asked for it, deliver it. And if there's some reason you can't deliver it, have that conversation. Well, once you're requested to deliver it, you have the conversation with your buyer no matter what. You don't deliver it without first talking to your buyer. But help your buyer to understand that there's probably not a lot of proprietary reasons why you shouldn't just deliver the form. And if it gets you past mutual acceptance, then hip, hip, hooray, well done. If you have questions on this topic or any other, please send a question to me by visiting warealtor.org. Thank you for being a Washington Realtors member.